Hi, everyone. It's another episode of the Full Tilt podcast. And today I'm really, really happy to introduce one of my great friends and a great member of the WEGroup Global team, Serena Adams, who's our head of destinations and also an epic surfer, which most people don't know. So welcome to the program, Serena.
Thanks, Bill. I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be a bit of fun. I'm sure you and I are going to reminisce a few things and let's get on with this.
Why not?
Why not?
Okay, so you're, first of all, we're going to get into some deep and meaningful stuff that most people don't know. The first thing is, which I love about you, but you're affectionately known as the mermaid. Tell us what that says about you and who you really are.
Okay, so the mermaid is because of my love of water. I'm always in the water, in the ocean. I'm an ocean woman and it's definitely my happy place. What it tells about me is that, I've got authenticity and I care about people and I care about the environment but I love the water.
You certainly do. I can vouch for that. So you were already running surf adventures for women over 40 when we first met. In fact, I was one of your first guests, which we haven't stopped talking about. What was the fire behind that? Like, what were you actually trying to create?
Well, I'll just backpedal a little bit. The history of myself is, growing up as a competitive surfer and in a surfing family. My mother was the entrepreneur businesswoman, but in the surfing industry. So for me as a young female surfer, I grew up in a supportive community. I was welcome as a female out in the surf, on the beach, in that environment. But for a lot of women around that era, in the 60s, 70s, they're grabbing a board and going out for a surf wasn't tolerated by the men. It wasn't welcome. Sit on the beach, look pretty, wear your bikini, great. But you're not welcome in the ocean. So for me, I saw that opportunity that there were women that have grown up around the ocean. They have dated surfers, they've married surfers, their children have become surfers, but they never did it themselves. So there was the opportunity to open that space up and for women over 40 to be seen, which I could see them. I'm over 40 and it's like, okay, I've got something. If you want to learn to surf, you want to go surfing, I've got the opportunity for you to do that. So that evolved into being able to take women to exotic surf destinations that was only known for experienced surfers or men, boatloads of men or surf shacks full of men. And we opened that opportunity for women over 40.
Of which I was one. And I did a couple of surf tours with yours. I think the funniest story I've got is you. I think I booked on the Fiji one, which was the second one. I think the first one I did with you was in our Australian surf town of Byron Bay. And then you were going to Fiji 2 weeks later and I booked on that. And you thought it was because you were a brilliant surf coach, which is semi-true. But I'd already rung my accountant and said, right, I think I've found my next business idea. So
Oblivious to what was going on.
And it was that, I mean, both things are true. Not obviously wouldn't have gone on it and wouldn't have spoken to you if I hadn't met you and talked to you about what you were doing. I certainly wouldn't have spoken to you about business moving forward. So just getting back to the surfing piece, because you and I both know there's a lot to it. It's not, most people think that surfing's really just a sport that you do in the ocean, but you saw something completely different. What did you see happening in those early groups that other people were missing?
Well, saw, like what I just mentioned before, I saw an opportunity to be able to let women know that they're not invisible. I see them. Just because you're over 40 doesn't mean you're invisible. It just means that you've got opportunities now. And I saw that. And I also saw that when you create an environment where women can get together to learn, to support, it's actually really empowering and it's very dynamic and long life trusting friend relationships is made from that.
And here we are. We certainly met, and there's lots happened since our first meeting on the beach. So actually take us back to that time with Surf Getaways. It started to become something much bigger than you thought it could be many years ago now, probably 10 years ago now. What shifted for it to do that, and were you ready for it?
Well, the shift was when you came into my life, Belinda. And we were talking about about Surf Getaways and where it could go. And you had the whiteboard and drew this big picture of the globe and circled every surf location around the world and said, this is where Surf Getaways is going to go. And I just went, I thought we were just going to Byron and Fiji, maybe Bali. And that was when I went, this is huge. This is way beyond what I'd never even entered my mind.
So do you think you were ready for it then?
No, I think physically, I think as a surfer and as a surf coach, absolutely. Being able to travel, I still had, my kids were young. I think Jethro was only about 7 then. And so that side of it, I could do, but it was more the business side of it and being able to go, to have something that big that's going to be around the world. And yeah, I definitely didn't think I was ready for that.
So speaking of which, and not being ready, co-founding a business with someone's a really big call. What do you think we each bring to the table when we did start the business? And obviously we're still in business today. And what were the honest conversations that you remember we had to have?
Well, I think one, and why we're still together is the honesty, not only having each other's back and being able to, be the cheerleader for each other, but that's not a big part of what we do and our success as friends or as colleagues. Ours is the honesty of when things are starting to slide, or it's the honesty that we have when things aren't going so well or there's big challenges, which there will always be in business, but the being able to see the capabilities of each other, or when one's struggling or when one's working really, really hard and doesn't stop and the other one's like going, okay, this is tough. We're able to pick each other up and just deliver a good, honest conversation to each other.
So obviously founding and building a business is messy. We know that. Well, I know that. This is my 5th and this is your, 2nd or 3rd. We broke you in the early days. And what kept you going when the logic really was probably telling you should stop?
Well, what kept me going is having the support and being able to be shown the bigger picture. You're a visionary. That's my name for you. You're the visionary, and to be able to see the potential and know actually it is just there. We've got the foundation, we've got the fundamentals, and to be able to know that, okay, actually it is just there. We've just got to get there, and there's a process to getting there. And what nearly broke me is the process to get there and having the structure and that was really tough for me. And I know you know what I'm talking about. And that's been a big growth and has been tough for me, because as a surf coach and as a surfer, you're able to wing it and adapt, and you have to have this flexibility, and you can't plan too much or have things too structured because you're working in an unstable environment. So you've got to be able to adapt to that. Whereas where we've going, well, actually you need really good structure, you need a really good format, and you need to have a really good plan and be absolutely focused on that at the end. So yeah, that's nearly broke me a couple of times.
Well, we've certainly had some pretty crazy projects that we've worked our way through in various parts of the world. So that I definitely can relate to. So you've traveled the world finding retreat destinations, and lots of people have a perspective of what it's like to work for a travel company, which we deny being. That's not what we do, but people see us as that. But part of what you do is obviously setting up destinations for us globally. What does that process actually look like for those that don't know? And then what does a location need to pass the Serena Adams test?
Well, what this role looks like and what the job actually really looks like is, it's not as glamorous as one would think. You need to be able to work in different time zones. You need to be able to be on long flights, and when you get to the other destination, you need to be fresh, you need to be ready to roll. There's not a lot of downtime. In saying that, you need to learn skills on how do you re-energize and how do you save your energy as well. So you're always on it, you're not tired. There's no such thing as jet lag when you're in this role. There's no time for it. Knowing that it's a great job, it's a really good opportunity, and that you're supporting a lot of people, but knowing that it's really hard work. Back to the different time zones, when you're building a retreat, sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning, because you're working with the other side of the world, you're working with hotels and vendors and clients, and they're not going to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to work in my time zone. So that's a stuff that we've had to get used to and adapt to and work out, well, what's the plan? How can we do this and it be sustainable?
Yeah, and it's definitely been interesting. So what does a destination have to have, though, for you to say, "Yep," for you to call me up or for you to send the team a note saying, "Hey, this is the place, this is the destination I've been looking for whatever theme or client we're working with." What does it have to have?
Well, safety is a big thing for us. We want to make sure that the country, the area that we're going into is going to be safe for our guests and the least amount of moving parts as possible. In saying that, we have ran and we do run retreats down off the Sahara Desert in Morocco, and we work in Bali. So it's just making sure that it's safe and making sure that the hotels are established in of a high standard, making sure that food suits a lot of different food restrictions, but also that it's healthy, and culturally making sure that the destination that you pick, that you can work within the culture and the people around.
Yeah, and we've definitely had experienced some challenges. I know that myself in some areas of the world, but we definitely try and work through them. I think we do that pretty well. You certainly lead it very well. So the podcast's called Full Tilt, and there's a reason for that. To be in a startup, you've really got to have an underlying vocation of obsession. You've got to be able to handle fear pretty well. And most of all, you've got to be able to pivot when things change before your eyes. So what was your pivot moment, like the moment that changed the entire trajectory of your career? If we look back at when we met and really before we met, when you were starting to consider surf coaching on a tour-based sort of
Mm.
schedule, what was your pivot that took you from that to where you are today?
I think the pivot is having more connection with people. That's a big thing with me. And going from like a commercial surf school operator to um, being more niche with women over 40, connecting those people together, connecting people with different locations and opening up opportunity for women and for people. That was a pivoting moment, and a big huge part of the pivoting moment for me is Belinda yourself, when you've showed me the vision of where we can go and the possibilities of the nature of this business can go, and the amount of people that we're able to touch and to connect. And that was really big, because I didn't think big enough past my own connection with people, that physical connection, to think that we're able to globally connect so many people together and empower people, but we don't physically have to be the ones that touching them. We've created the environment, and we will introduce people together, and we will help create their retreat or their summit or their experience that they're doing, but we don't physically have to be in the room with them for this to have that butterfly effect and keep moving on. So that was a big pivoting moment.
Yeah, and it's definitely something I know that it's part of the ethos of what we do, obviously, to bring people together. And you're brilliant at it for a number of reasons. But one of the particular, I don't know if it's a skill, I think it's an innate quality you have, and people don't realize that you've been working in the background of mental health and disability support for quite a number of years. And that's really grounded in your capacity for building compassion and empathy for people, and then obviously bringing that into the groups that you're part of. How does that experience shape the way you design retreats and lead people?
Well, I think, as well as working with different community groups and people with different ability challenges, that being a surfer and being in the environment where it's forever changing and it's unpredictable and it's uncontrollable helps with your natural instinct, and you can bring that onto the land. And that's what I've been able to do with WeGroup Global is working in the environment where you're at an event and being able to see the people in the room, be able to look at the environment, be able to read body languages and foresee, where do we need to be? What do we need to do? And that's instinctual and that's it's authentic. It's your caring nature, but it's also an instinctual thing where you're almost like you're hunting down what could happen now, or what does that person look like they need, or where can we do better, or like you're constantly observing and looking and feeling, and it's a personality trait that is a natural and it comes from experience and past. It's not something that's taught.
No, it's not. And I know that's something that you've spent a lot of time focused on, which we're enormously grateful for as a team, because you bring that into our own customer service model, which is it's actually quite humbling, because it's forever reminding me that the sense of human connection is at the center of what we do. So speaking of that, it's not always easy building that in a team. So what are the hardest things about building that in a business, and then obviously building it in a way that it's able to scale?
Yeah, well, the scalability, when we're talking about people's natural behavior and their natural ability to fit this role, like I just said, that it's not something that we can teach. We can't teach people that instinctual behavior, and we can't teach them to be authentic. These are things that are already come within. So the hardest thing is finding the people that have already got this and bringing it into our WeGroup Global team. We know they're there. We've met so many already, and that's where we're at. It's, just finding the people that have that instinctual connection of being able to read the room and actually care for human connection.
Yes, and that's definitely something I know we both experienced in terms of hiring people. It's a fun industry, so we tend to get a lot of people that think they want to work with us just because they get an airplane ticket to somewhere cool on the planet. But without that natural instinct for empathy and connection and authenticity, it just doesn't work. It's not sustainable. And I know we're both pretty good at weeding out the elements that don't really sort of fill that function well. You're particularly good at it, obviously, because you're quite innate abilities with compassion and empathy, things like that. They obviously register pretty quickly when people don't have it. So moving into how you show empathy for yourself, what does it actually feel like to be all in when you're in something like a startup? And have there been moments when you genuinely question whether you're in too deep?
So what does it feel like? It feels like a roller coaster, like the maddest ride that you've ever been on in your life. And just when you feel like it's coming down to stop and you're going to slow down, boom, off it goes again. And you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. But what's great about that is that not everything that happens and not all the decisions that are made do you have to foresee. That's why, you're the visionary in WeGroup Global. You see where the potential, and you've delivered that and been able to show me this over the years, and knowing that, okay, well, this is where we're going and this is how we're doing it. If you feel like you're really strapped in tight on that roller coaster, you're not going to fly off the ends. Even though some of those turns, I'm like, whoa, okay. So yeah, it's wild. Absolutely wild. But
So have you ever questioned, like, maybe I'm in way too deep and didn't think I was going to get this far in? And if you do get into that sort of space where you think maybe, if you use the perfect analogy of the surf, where you're being hit by another wave and another wave and another wave, what do you do to enable yourself to keep perspective so you don't, I guess, metaphorically drown?
keep your head above the water. You do breath classes. I do that. Ice bath and stretch classes. I do those. Meditation. I know for some people the word meditation, they just sort of roll their eyes. But when you can get a good practice, and Belle has helped me with this a lot. And when you get a good practice that you can just clear your mind and be in the moment and the real right now, right here, then you're able to step out of that overwhelming or that self-doubt or that this is too hard, I'm off. And I think, back to the surfing, man, if I quit surfing because I fell off the board or because I got wiped out, I wouldn't have made it past the age of 4 surfing. Like,
That's
this is what
true.
happens. So in this journey that we're on now, and I haven't fallen off. Yeah, I've been overwhelmed. Yeah, I've been fearful. I've been doubtful. But at the end of the day, I've had people like yourself. I've got a really good support system that remind me of my capabilities, remind me of what we're doing. And because it comes back all the time to connecting people, that is me. That's, if I can affect and help people in a positive way, and being able to do it through WEGroup Global, where it's this global opportunity, it's really exciting. And all of a sudden, that rickety old roller coaster from back in the 70s that you would not hop on is now a modern one with great harnesses and proper engineers that build them. So we're strapped on, we're safe, and we've got the support.
Yeah, I really like the analogy of surfing because I think for startup ecosystem, it's one of the best things you can kind of equate it to, particularly if you've ever been in the water with a surfboard. I mean, the thing about it is, and I know we've talked about this laughing sometimes, but you can fall off when you're surfing, but you can fall off and still laughing and get bored and you just keep going, right? You just paddle out, you do it again. I think that's what I love about the analogy with startups, because from my experience, that's the only way that you get better. And that's the same in surfing. You just have to keep showing up, don't you? You just have to, okay, you fell off yesterday. You didn't have such a great surf session, but what do you do the next day? You get up, you show up again, you practice again. And that's what I love about this, the sort of analogy for certainly the startup ecosystem. It's really, really similar. So, and obviously when you keep showing up, I think you get the team gets better, the idea gets better, you just do. It's just a natural thing of starting to work out what to do. So speaking of that, we could keep WeGroup really small and intimate, which we've done. I mean, to be honest, we've done that by design for the first few years until we did work out how to not fall off the surfboard. But there's another version of what we do that goes like, obviously our intent is we don't have small goals in this business. We have big ones. So our intent is to take what we do globally, because we think more than ever right now in the world, there's a need for human connection. If there ever was a time in world history, it's now. But how do you hold on to the soul of what we've built, given that's really grounded? I know our whole team culture is very much grounded in compassion for each other and empathy. At the same time, the human connection sometimes isn't easy. You have to call people out. You really have to be always focused on the person. But how do you keep that, at the center of what we're building from your perspective?
Well, that human connection, making sure that whatever we're creating, whatever client that we have that we're working with, and we're empowering them and we're helping them shine in an environment that maybe they're not used to, we're actually the core of it is we've got you. We've got, not only do we believe in what you're doing and your skill sets, and we help them be able to own their spot on the stage, but we're also saying, well, we're able to do all the hard yards, the stuff that's stressful, and that we're able to do that for you while you just focus on what you're doing. Then for me, and going like, okay, on a global perspective, is that through these different areas and through these different locations where we're running these events, is that they're touching more and more people, and those people are connecting with each other, and it not on a video basis, but on a face-to-face business. And that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps the core of what WeGroup Global is about. And it can be anywhere in the world that this can happen. And that is exciting for me. And that's what keeps the drive in me. That's what keeps me showing up.
Yeah, and it's definitely, like I said, the ethos of what I think we all do. We wouldn't be able to keep doing what we're doing on the scale we're doing if we didn't have that. But you're definitely an integral part of the team, bringing that in to how we experience our work environment every day. But in terms of pivotal moments in people's lives, so we talk about the human connection, I guess, is a generality mostly. That's the ethos of what we do. But I know I've got a pretty good example when I'll share that with you in a minute. But what's your most profound transformation that you've witnessed with someone on a tour that you've been part of or that you've been leading? And how did that affect you personally?
Well, for me was one of our hosts that we were hosting a retreat in Bali, and her guests were there to learn about planning, not the bucket list, but the life list. And part of what she wanted and what was part of her life list was learning to surf. And so I took the group surfing every afternoon, and it was just meant to be a bit of fun and everyone just giving it a go. And she's a successful businesswoman. She's actually this amazing human being, and she's a surfer now. And I was looking at one of her posts only a couple of days ago, and she's posted about catching this big green wave and, surfing and just the thrill and the stoked. And, that is what's really exciting when you can create an environment that changes people's lives. And, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Remember years and years ago, in fact, I think it was the first surf tour I did with you. Remember we had a guest, or you had a guest called Andy, who we'd only worked out, this is my experience, and really one of the grounding reasons I thought, wow, this is really something. So I'm just going to explain to those listening, it was an extraordinary experience for me and very humbling. The first surf tour I did with Serena, there was about half a dozen business women. We were in Byron Bay, and every night we'd have dinner in one of the best restaurants actually on the east coast of Australia. That was also a bonus of being on a surf tour with Serena. She loves to eat well, so that's always a good thing. And Andy was a guest, and we were all, I guess the majority of the guests were intermediate. Well, you think we would have been intermediate surfers, do you think? I think we were pretty much.
Yep.
And Andy had sort of been mentioning that she wanted to learn to surf. And I think it was, I think it was her 40th birthday present or something to herself.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
And so the tour was for about 5 days or something. And halfway through the tour, we're having dinner. And by this stage, we'd all gotten to know each other and we'd had 1 or 2 glasses of wine at dinner. And it was only then that we realised, the truth came out, that it was only a month or so before she'd learnt to swim. She couldn't swim, so we were paddling out the back of reasonable waves. Here's us all thinking she didn't know what she was doing, and then we realised that not only was she ballsy enough to be on a surf tour, she taught herself to swim because learning to surf was one of the things she wanted to cross off on her bucket list, and she'd turned 40, and that was the year she was going to do it. And I can remember all of us at the dinner just stopped dead and looked at her and just went, holy crap. Like, we were in awe of her from that moment. And then remember, I think after that, she became a repeat guest when we launched Surf Getaways, and she started to do underwater training, gone back home and had a swim coach that was teaching her to hold her breath underwater. And to this day, that was for me an extraordinary experience where I just went, wow, what she did, what she was prepared to put herself through, and then what we all realised she was trying to do and then really encouraged her was really something profound for me. And I'll never forget that. That was really the beginnings of, I guess, the ethos of what we did with Surf Getaways. But
I remember she also, she said, and we said, you have to be able to swim to come on the trip.
That's right.
Yeah, I read that. So I ticked I could swim, but then I had to go and have swimming
and have classes. I know. Extraordinary, really extraordinary. So moving on to what people get wrong about the industry, which we know there's a lot, but what do most people get wrong about what we do, and especially retreats and creating experiences for groups of people? What do you think they get wrong?
Well, I think a big misconception is that you and I are sitting in hammocks and drinking pina coladas every trip. We've just recently been to the home of the pina colada and we still enjoy it there. And that it's this glamorous job that you're always on this continuous holiday, and which isn't the case. Yes, we get to go to amazing locations. We get to work with pretty awesome people like hotel owners and food vendors and transport, local people. We get to do all that, but you're there for the people. You're not there for yourself. So there's, like I said earlier, you've got time zone differences. You've got travel, you can't have jet lag. You've got everybody's needs. That is your responsibility, making sure people are safe, making sure if there's anything that they need that you're there and to be able to deliver that, making sure your host can just focus on what their skill is, which is delivering what they are there for to their attendees. And they don't need to worry about other things. And when you care for your host and for your attendees that much, it takes a lot of energy. At the end of the day, when you come home, you're on a high because it's so successful and you get to see what people get out of that particular retreat or that particular summit. But also it's very exhausting. You don't have a lot of energy, but you've got to learn how do I re-energize, because your job just doesn't stop there because that retreat's finished. You've got the next 5, 10, 12, you've got your team that you're managing. So it's tough work like any job, but it is an amazing, amazing job. It's an amazing journey. And I think that's because you and I do enjoy it so much and we do talk about how good it is, I think that sort of leads to people with a misconception that we're in a hammock drinking a pina colada.
Or that because you've worked in nightclubs in New York, you're really good at running retreats, and so you just think it's super easy, and you go, that's my favourite, is just like, yep, well, all
Yeah.
we do is throw parties. Anyone can do it. Yeah, why not? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And that is a big one from, and an industry that has been around for a very long time, but we're coming in and we're shaking that industry up because it's lacking that human connection. It's like rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And we're like, no, every retreat, every summit is different. They're different people. There's a different speaker, and we need to connect this group of people together in a way that they haven't experienced before. And you don't have to fill your retreat with 100 different things to make it authentic connection and an experience that your guests will remember for the rest of their lives. You don't need to do that.
No, in most cases it doesn't work if you do, because people are ended up being scattered and their energy's scattered, and that's part of, again, the ethos. And I have to say the learnings, what I think we've both found extraordinary is that people think that we don't have any experience doing this. We've been doing it for pretty much a decade. Plus, I've worked in the travel industry before, and you've been working in mental health and disability support, so you know human behaviour better than most. And I certainly know the travel industry pretty much inside out, and people think we're winging it, and that always makes me laugh a little bit. Anyway,
you try taking a group of middle-aged women to across the globe for a surfing adventure on a boat in the Maldives where
yes,
what?
and you can't get off.
Yeah,
You have to stay on it.
Yeah, and then you look at people in the airport looking at you, going, "What are you women? What are you women doing? Are you in a band?" We're like, "Yeah,
I
no, we're not.
know,
We're
I know.
surfers." So
I know.
yeah, pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
it's definitely been an interesting journey. Well, listen, thanks so much for taking the time today out of your busy schedule to join the podcast. I know it's a very unique environment for us because we're normally in the office, and this has been really, really enjoyable for me, actually, looking at you through a different lens and talking to you through a different perspective. So actually, I've learned a lot today as well. We always finish the interviews, though, with a 5-question rapid fire section. And so, ready? Here we go.
Right.
Okay, best surf spot in the world. Go.
It's the spot where I'm surfing, paddling out with a group of friends, and we're laughing, having a great time. It could be anywhere.
One quality every great builder of connection and inclusion must have.
Authenticity, truth, and instinct.
What's the conversation women are having on retreats that they're not having anywhere else in their lives? Well, some of that we can't say, but I'll let you try and answer that.
Yeah. The things that I can say related to surfing is, oh my God, I never thought I could be a surfer.
That's true. I said that, I know, many times. So for you, what does living at Full Tilt mean to you personally?
It means being supported. It means being on a journey that is way bigger than you could originally thought, and knowing that you can do amazing things with the right people and the right belief.
So what's next? What's the next big audacious thing WeGroup Global are going to run that people don't know about?
So in my role, head of destinations, expanding the team globally, and just getting to meet more facilitators and just have a broader team that can deliver more of what we love to do, which is connecting people and giving them great, memorable experiences.
Thanks so much. Great to have you. See you back in the office.